Things have not been working on the railroad for Midwestern agricultural producers, and some regional senators are doing what they can to fix that issue. I spoke with Senators John Thune and Heidi Heitkamp of South Dakota and North Dakota respectively, and they told me a little bit about what they're doing to address the issue. Senator Thune serves as the ranking member of the Senate Commerce Committee, and they held a hearing this week which Senator Thune said met his expectations.
It did. What we were looking at really was kind of a sort of a big picture, 30,000-foot look at rail service in the country. You know, we were drilling down a little bit, particularly in the upper plains in the Midwest, because that's where the most acute problems are right now. But it was an opportunity to look at some of the rail service issues that exist out there. So we had a good, I think, pretty balanced perspective on what some of the challenges are, both near-term and long-term, and hopefully what some of the solutions could be.
Well, we're hoping that the Surface Transportation Board and now the attention that the Senate committee has placed on this issue will shake loose some additional information, but we need to have an elevator-to-elevator, shipper-to-shipper discussion so we can actually get to the real data.
With record grain harvests last year and USDA not backing off of similarly optimistic predictions this year, Senator Heitkamp wonders if this is a problem that we're also going to be facing in the future.
Without some serious intervention here and additional resources, my great concern is that we will not only have a problem with crop year 13 and crop year 14, but we're going to see this into crop year 15. And that's why I think all of the attention that we've given to this issue over the last year almost has been invaluable in terms of ratcheting up the attention from regulators, but also the response from the rails.
The part that was we still have a lot of anxiety about is just with the huge harvest coming in. It's going to be a record 1.1 billion bushels of grain coming through South Dakota this year, so a very good year. And when you already have problems to start with and you're coming up against a record bumper crop, you have to be prepared.
Senator Thune and Commerce Committee Chair Jay Rockefeller introduced a bill this week intended to reform the Surface Transportation Board, and Senator Thune says this is a bill that might have a chance at final passage.
Well, you know, it's hard to say. We're not going to be in that much here this fall until at least after the election, but I think after the election, if there are bills that have pretty broad bipartisan support, if we can report this bill out this next week with fairly strong Democrat and Republican support, then perhaps somewhere down the road before the end of the year we might be able to clear it through the Senate. Now, obviously we've got to get the House to act on it as well. But even if we don't get it done this year, it tees it up for next year. And I think this is a debate that's going to continue. We continue to see high demand, a lot of volume moved on rail in this country. The economy's bouncing back, and that's created a tremendous amount of pressures and constraints on the existing rail system today. So I think this is going to be an issue that's with us for a while.
I think we need to look at what kind of authority the Surface Transportation Board has to help better manage the competition between shippers. I think that as the committee deliberates on this bill and as we see the reaction that we're getting from the shippers, we'll have a better idea. But today I asked for the committee to consider some increased powers for the Surface Transportation Board.
But we think that there are things that they could be doing that they aren't, and one would be initiating some of these investigations proactively as opposed to waiting until a shipper brings a complaint. And I think that would give them an opportunity to become a little bit more just proactive in the sense of getting out there and detecting some of these problems before they become a real crisis. And expanding the board from 3 to 5, allowing them to have discussions where they can solve problems among themselves. Right now there are 3 board members and 2 of them can't talk to each other, you know, unless it's an open meeting. And so we're trying to create some mechanisms, some process reforms that would expedite and make the proceedings of the Surface Transportation Board a little bit more efficient and hopefully result in better outcomes.
On top of the state's grain production, an oil boom is also being experienced in North Dakota, but Senator Heitkamp said those companies aren't complaining to her about any issues with rail cars.
The rail industry will tell you, yes, they complain, but they aren't complaining to me. And so clearly we're talking about track time, we're talking about capacity. The increase in crude oil on the rails has created an infrastructure crisis that's not being met right now by the railroads because we're not moving all this product as efficiently and as quickly as it needs to move in order to capture our markets.
In order to combat this issue in a long-term scenario, both senators suggested that an infrastructure improvement might be needed.
You know, rail transportation is the most efficient way to move bulk commodities. So if you're talking about agricultural commodities, corn, beans, wheat, things like that, you really need rail transportation. And so the need is not going away, and hopefully with good crops for the foreseeable future and some of the other things that are moving on the rail, it's a high-class problem to have. That means you've got an economy that's expanding and growing and creating opportunity, but you also have to anticipate and be prepared for some of the problems that occur as a result of that growth and try and deal with them in a proactive way as opposed to waiting until it becomes a crisis and it's too late.
Burlington Northern is making a massive investment this year in North Dakota. My concern has always been, in spite of huge numbers, are we building for today's situation or tomorrow's situation? You know, we produce great commodities in North Dakota, whether it is our Bakken crude or whether it is soybeans and pulse crops, and let me tell you, we produce a lot of commodities. But if we can't move them to market when we need to move them to market, they don't have the value that they should have, and that has huge economic consequences, not just to my state, but to agriculture all across the northern tier. And so it is critically important that we solve this issue and do it fairly quickly.
Senator Heitkamp said the accuracy of the data reported by rail companies can be difficult to gauge, but Burlington Northern does continue to report progress in the state of North Dakota and recently reported that less than 1,000 cars were past due for the first time in their reporting. Reporting for Agri-Pulse, I'm Spencer Chase.